What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG podcast. Today I'm being joined by a very special guest, WWE Superstar and musician, Mr. Joaquin Wilde. How are you, brother?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Podcasts, they give me a little bit of anxiety, so we'll get through it.
Look, I'm here to make it as comfortable as possible. I try not to be your standard podcast or interview. I get a lot of musicians that come through and they expect like the same standard press questions, and like I don't care. There's Rolling Stone and all these other websites will ask you those questions. I just want to get to know you, let people get to know you, and check out your music, check out your work.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Like, I guess what I mean by that is like, right now it just feels like you and me are having a conversation, just you and me. But a lot of people are going to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like there's some anxiety that comes with that. But I'm excited. I never get to talk about music, and it's something that I'm passionate about, much like I'm passionate about professional wrestling. So it's pretty exciting for me.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, music has been my number one passion since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I love pro wrestling as well, and there's a bunch of other things, beer and all these other things that I love, but music has always been my number one thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess for me too, I was thinking like, would anybody even want to hear me talk about music on a podcast since I'm a professional wrestler? But as I thought more about it, I'm like, there's a story here. Like, I'm excited to get into it because like, there's some inspiring story here. Like I'm telling you. So yeah, it should be fun.
Hell yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about what got you into music, and actually what came first. Was it music or pro wrestling?
Like they've both been in my life for as long as I can remember. Like I can't say it was one or the other first. Like I was raised by a single mom, immigrant. She worked a lot of odd jobs to support our family, and I was left unsupervised at home a lot at a very young age, like way too young to be unsupervised. And I spent a lot of time watching MTV.
Back when they still showed music.
Yes. I was like, we're talking like when I was like 5-6 years old. Okay. So this is like the early 90s, like 92, 93. And while most kids were watching Nickelodeon, I was usually watching MTV. And I'm sure this affected me in many ways, but it's also why music has been such a big thing in my life. It's just been relevant for as long as I can remember. My earliest memories involve music. So, yeah, and same with pro wrestling. But at the time, like when I was really young, like wrestling only came on TV like Saturday mornings, I think. So yeah. I only had wrestling on Saturday mornings. Every other day I was watching MTV.
Wow. Okay. All right. I mean, we're kind of close in age. I know that you're a few years younger than me, but it was still like I kind of grew up in that MTV era too. I would imagine Pauly Shore was kind of a big deal for you when you were growing up.
Yeah, you know what? Like for me, like I remember Beavis and Butthead. It was actually it was a big deal when I was about 6-7 years old. I was watching Beavis and Butthead, and it was like a topic of conversation amongst parents. I remember like you shouldn't let your kids watch that, and like my mom and her friends like trying to have like an intervention with me at one point, telling me I'm too young to watch Beavis and Butthead, but you're just gonna sneak off and like watch it anyway.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I taught that when I was a kid. I remember the talk was 2 Live Crew. I wasn't allowed to listen to 2 Live Crew because it was too raunchy.
That would have been a big one. Yeah, man. So many things. Yeah, it's funny.
But I mean, and you mentioned Beavis and Butthead. It's such a it's a dumb cartoon that I grew up watching too. It's silly, it's goofy, but it also introduced a lot of people to music. Nobody else was doing that, where they were watching music videos, and yeah, they would poke fun at some of it, but a lot of the time it was they were showcasing. And there was a lot of like rock and metal too, which is cool because I grew up as a little rocker kid. So it was cool to see and to discover new music through a cartoon. It was just weird.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I feel like there was a lot of experimental stuff they did in the 90s with MTV. Like I think back to it now, I'm like, there were so many shows. There's a really obscure one. This is like kind of late 90s, but like it stuck with me just because it was so strange. There was a show called Oddville MTV. Do you remember this at all?
Oh yeah, I remember Oddville.
It's on YouTube. Like if you go on YouTube and search it, like some of the episodes pop up, and it's just such a bizarre experimental show. And I'm like, why was this on television? But
Oh yeah,
I think that
yeah.
just kind of speaks to the 90s in general. It was very experimental all around, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was also Liquid TV that they would put on that had like the weirder cartoons like The Head or Max
Yeah,
or
I remember
yeah.
that.
Really weird stuff back then. And I mean, they're still weird. I mean, honestly, I see the internet these days, like some of the memes and TikToks that I see are to me are weird. So I guess it's just consistent.
Yeah.
So okay, your music is predominantly electronic from what I've heard and seen. Um,
Yeah.
is there an instrument that you play or maybe learned to play when you were younger?
So I think that's kind of like why I think that my story with music, my journey with music, uh, could be inspiring for some people because nah, man, I did not grow up uh, with music in the household. Like I did not grow up playing an instrument. Again,
Mm.
single mom, not from this country, very poor family that I had, and like there was just never even an opportunity to go take guitar lessons. Like that wasn't even like that didn't even register as a possibility for me growing up. It was like just the standard like we play football and then play basketball or baseball or whatever it is. Go outside and play with your friends. But these like extra opportunities that I feel like maybe I could have had just weren't on my radar. So like I didn't grow up playing music. I just grew up a fan of music, a listener of music, a goer of concerts, you know, like stuff like that. But and I always wanted to be involved with music, uh like my biggest dream. And it's like I heard this thing once that was like there's a difference between dreams and goals. You know what I'm saying? Like a
Yeah,
goal is like something that you're gonna actually like put forth the effort and work towards. A dream is something that like you fantasize about, but like are you actually gonna like take the steps involved to make it a reality? I don't know. We've all got those things. But
sure.
like for me, I want to be a rapper. Like that is like a dream. You know what I'm saying? Still to this day, like I think it's so cool and I wish I had that skill. And sure, like if I really wanted to, like I could like probably like learn the art of rap and maybe in like 20 years I might be like halfway decent. But it's like not something that I'm trying to chase or pursue. But I just kind of thought to myself, like at some point, uh, like I can't live my life and not do something with music. You know what I'm saying? Like we've only got one shot at this whole life thing, and none of us really know what happens when it's over. You know what I'm saying? And it could be over any day now. Like I could leave here right now and get hit by a car, and then that's it. Like,
Yeah.
so I just don't believe in like phoning it in with your one shot at life. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
So I thought to myself, like, while I'm here, while I've got this opportunity at life, I need to like take advantage of it and do whatever interests me, whatever like speaks to me, whatever I want to at least attempt to pursue. So professional wrestling obviously falls in that category. You know what I'm saying? That was like a dream forever. So it's like, yes, I'm going to try to become a professional wrestler. And music kind of the same way. It's like just eating away at me where it's like, I love music almost as much as I love wrestling. I cannot live my one life without doing something involved in music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just kind of started there where it's like, how can I be involved in music? Like I tried to take guitar lessons when I was 19. Do you play guitar or anything like that?
I do. I do. I play pretty much everything except for like I can play the drums, but not great. I can play
See,
guitar and bass all right.
like to me, you're like the coolest guy in the world. Like just for all that. Like, listen, when I was like 19, I tried to play guitar. I took lessons. Bro, this pinky finger was so hard to like stretch to like I don't even know the terminology, but it's like I had a problem like getting my pinky to like reach the I don't know the frets or what I don't remember what it's called, the strings.
Yeah, the frets.
I don't know exactly. But yeah, and there's a joke that I've been telling for years. I stole it from a stand-up comedian. I have no idea who he was. It was just one of those like stand-ups where like I left the TV on at night and I woke up in the middle of the night and there was stand-up on the TV and this guy said something and I'm like, that's really funny, and I fell back asleep. But I've since stolen the joke where I'm like, if there weren't already people playing guitar, I would think it's physically impossible to do it.
Oh man, I feel that way. I feel that way about drummers. Cause,
really?
Yeah, because like for guitar, I feel like it's fingers and like if you type or play video games. Like I feel like that's fine. Like I can my brain, but that's probably because I can do it. But when I see drummers and they can move each individual limb, and some of them are going at completely different time signatures, I
Yeah.
can't handle. I can't. My brain's like, nope. I don't know how
Yeah.
you do that.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's truly incredible. Yeah. So like maybe I want to say around 2012. It's weird because like I don't know about you, but like sometimes I feel like our stories are already written and we're just living out the pages. You know what I'm saying? Because there's just too many things that I just can't like. I can't like look at them and just say like it's just a coincidence. It's just things like I feel like sometimes the universe puts things like in front of you, puts things like on your radar, and it's up to you to like seize that thing or go after that thing or just kind of like dismiss it. And around 2012, I was living in like Washington D.C. and I had just graduated college and I moved to DC, and a kid that I went to college with who was doing like some DJing like at some local bars like in our college town, like I started seeing on Facebook that like he was in New York City and like was like involved in this like kind of like electronic music scene they had out there, like early days of EDM, I guess. And he was like kind of making a name for himself and kind of like getting a buzz. It's how it seemed on Facebook anyway. And I'm like, wow, like this guy was just DJing like little bars like a few months ago. I was there. Like now it looks like he's really doing something in New York. I'm like, man, this is interesting. So I started paying more attention to that. And then I got to thinking like, maybe this is like how I get involved in music. Like maybe it's DJing, because I feel like it's a lot quicker to learn how to DJ and then like do some like gigs and like play some parties, play some bars. It's a lot quicker than like me learning how to play guitar and then actually getting on stage and like joining a band, all that stuff. It just seemed like a lot quicker access. And I'm like, maybe I need to like try to become a DJ. And then as fate would have it, like I looked up like DJ lessons, Washington, D.C. There was a place 5 minutes from my house, like 1.3 miles or something crazy like that. And I'm like, well, that's odd, you know? So I just kind of like took that as like a weird sign. Like I need to like go there. And I went to that DJ place, and this DJ named DJ ID, who now like he DJs in Australia. There was another DJ named Trays, who's like a Red Bull like champion DJ. And there's another guy named DJ Rags, who's like a hip hop DJ. Like these three guys kind of taught me everything I knew about DJing. And that led to like me discovering like my real passion, which wasn't even DJing. It was like music production and like making beats. That ended up being like the real passion, the real love. But I got there through DJing, and yeah, a lot of cool things have happened like once I started that journey. But yeah, it's like it all started like Washington D.C. 2012.
Wow, that's interesting. And like what you were saying, it feels like the universe put that in front of you. I'm a big believer in that maybe I play too many video games, but I play a lot of RPGs where you get to a part in the game and they give you options like, here are these things, what do you want to do? And I feel like life does that to us sometimes. Or like hey, the DJ thing, huh? Ooh, look at that, 5 minutes away. Like, and you could have just been like, nah, maybe tomorrow, and then you maybe I never go. But you chose to follow that path and go to that school and discover all of that. So yeah, I mean, it was meant to be, I believe, for sure, that you get involved somehow.
So that's how I felt too. Was like it did feel like a weird destiny kind of thing. And you ever heard the quote? How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of a big believer in that quote. Like for me, just some examples of that. Like when I wanted to learn Mexican lucha libre, I didn't just go learn it from like some dudes here in the States. I had to go to Mexico and learn it from the real luchadors. You know what I'm saying? Same with the DJing. It's like I couldn't. Yeah, sure, I could have like went on YouTube and found some tutorial videos and learned it that way. But no, I had to learn from like world-renowned DJs. And then it's like it was kind of the same with the music production thing too. Was like, it's like yeah, I could have same thing gone on YouTube and maybe like figured out like some way to learn how to make beats. But my friend that I had mentioned from college, the one that was in New York City, I'd seen him post a lot about like a music production school that he went to called Dubspot. It was in New York City. I don't believe it exists anymore, but at the time it was a thing, like 10 years ago. So I looked into that and it was like, this is so funny. Like, I had like, dude, I was in my early 20s when all this is happening, and like just got out of college, a young adult, you know what I'm saying? Had no idea how to use a credit card or like manage a credit card. Bro, I maxed out this credit card like so fast. Like, we're talking like within like a year or so of me being out of college, I maxed out this credit card. And it took me probably like the next like 1 to 2 years to like pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I got this credit card down to zero. I was so proud of myself. I announced on Facebook that I'm a real adult now. I'm so proud that I like got my credit card debt down to zero. I'm not even kidding you. A week later, 1 week later, I maxed that thing right back out because I paid to go to this Dubspot music production school. I was that hungry, that determined to like learn the art of like making beats, that I was like, I don't even care that it took me 2 years to get out of this credit card debt. I'm going right back in because I have to do this. You know what I'm saying? I have to. I can't live my life and not be able to say that I can make beats, you know? And yeah, that's how it started. I went to Dubspot, joined their online school. And yeah, for the next year, I was like pretty deep in that. I probably spent like the years of 2014 and 2015 when I wasn't wrestling. I was just sitting on my laptop, like, and I went through like ridiculous like means to like get like studio like equipment too, because again, I didn't have like money. I was still like broke and like a starving artist type of person. You know, I had girls in my life that like bought me speakers and like it was just insane like shortcuts that I would take to like make my dreams come true. But you know what? By any means necessary.
Sure. I wouldn't call them shortcuts. Yeah. Shortcuts is kind of demeaning. Like, I think that, you know, you found the way, and that's what I think that is why you've been successful in your career, because you chase after it. You go and do, and not only do you chase after it, but you go and try and learn from the best. That's something that I've always tried to do. Like, when I decided I wanted to get involved with comedy, I went straight to the Comedy Store. I'm not going to go to the Ha Ha or, you know, whatever it is down to like some cafe. Like, yeah, I'll go do that to like, you know, get my reps in or whatever and check out the scene. But I want to learn from the best. I want to go 100%. Over there and get the best education, you know?
Yep. No, absolutely. And like, that was my mindset also. And like, yeah, you said something that like made me think of another little like gem of wisdom. It's like, if you want it bad enough, like, you're going to find a way. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you are truly like driven and passionate about whatever it is, comedy, music, wrestling, if you want it bad enough, you will find a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, also, I think that hunger comes, you know, from your upbringing. Like, I was also poor child. My dad disappeared after, you know, I was like 12, like single mom, poor, same. You get that hunger. You get this, like, I need to do something, and I want to do something that I love to do. Cause sure, we could have taken the path of, you know, go work construction or maybe go to school and be a doctor or something. But a lot of those people that I know are miserable. They're like, oh, I make a ton of money, but I lost all these years of my life and I'm in this much school debt and all this other stuff. And aren't really passionate about their career. Like, you chose music and pro wrestling, which are two of your biggest passions, and followed it through.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, like, just kind of like made me realize, like, my mom's definitely an inspiration for me because, like, so while my mom didn't chase some passion like music or wrestling, like, a dream for my mom was to escape the Philippines. And she kind of did it like by any means necessary. My mom's a mail order bride. Like, I don't know if you know that. Yeah, my mom came to this country. She was ordered out of a catalog. Jeez. So yeah, it's like, but that's what she felt she needed to do to escape her like situation. And yeah, it's like by any means necessary. It's like however she can get out of there and get to where she needs to be, she was going to do it. And I think, yeah, that definitely has inspired me in some ways. Maybe that I don't even realize. Maybe I'm kind of like understanding and working through that right now in this moment. But,
but yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a subconscious thing that we don't really think about. And like, we're busy trying to make our thing. You're busy trying to do your work, so you're not really thinking about like, oh man, you know, her. You have to thank her for the motivation of just having it in her mind to be like, whatever it takes to provide a better life
Yes.
for myself and my child, and because a lot of people don't have that. I know I'm
Yeah.
Cuban. I'm Cuban, so all of my, a lot of my family comes from slavery and just living in a communist country and trying to, like, a lot of those people jump in the sea and try to go to Miami, like, they're by any means necessary, get me out of this place. But there's a lot of Cubans that they're just like, well, nope, this is what I got, and they don't have the foresight to kind of, maybe things could be better if I put in a little more work, or if I do whatever it takes to get me out of this situation,
Yeah. I mean, to each their own. Like I was saying earlier, for me, I just can't relate in some ways, because I just feel like I'm just like, dude, I can't phone it in. Like, I already almost died once, so I think maybe that like kind of like plays like a part too, where it's like I already like kind of experienced like, yeah, this can definitely end like at any time. So while we're here, let's make the most of it.
Can you want to talk about that? Like, what do you mean you almost died? Because
Bro,
I'm starting to realize that you and I have a lot in common.
Look at the scar on my stomach.
Oh my God, what's that from? Pregnancy? No, I'm just kidding.
Look, it's a long story, and if you look up like DJZ injury on YouTube, you'll find some documentaries and like a TMZ interview. But
okay,
yeah, long story short, I did a match in Mexico City, and I got injured in the match, and I started bleeding internally, and I almost died.
Wow.
Yeah. It was probably the scariest moment of my life, like worst night of my life by far. Almost the end of my career, almost the end of my life. But what's funny, I've said in other interviews, like I've often like thought to myself, like, why was I spared? Like, why did my life not end that night? And it's like, well, there must be something left for me to achieve. And I've kind of used that as like my guiding light, my motivation. I'm like, I got to find what that something is. It helped me continue my wrestling career, because everybody told me to quit wrestling after I almost died. They were like, you're out of your mind. Like, people that almost die in a plane crash don't go on to become a pilot. You know what I'm saying? Why are you trying to be a wrestler when it almost killed you? And I'm like, there's something, like, there's still something I have to achieve. Like, that's why I'm here. So I got to figure out what it is. And I thought it was like going to WWE, and maybe it is. But since then, I've also met a girl who's now my wife. I've had a child. So it's like, maybe those were the things that, I still had to achieve. Like, who knows? Like, who's to say? Yeah. But yeah, I'm really glad I didn't die.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. I'm glad you're here. I mean, I was saying, like, I feel like you and I have a lot in common in terms of, single mom, poor upbringing. And I've said it a million times on this show. I'm not going to, but, I had a bad car accident in 2002 where I was proclaimed dead. I died and woke up in a helicopter up above to paddles. So I also, like, now, like, I can't just sit around. When I hear people tell me, like, oh man, I'm bored, I'm like, you're bored? How are you bored? How do you have time to be bored? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so much to do.
Like, dude, now that I have like a kid too, I think to myself, look, if you don't have a kid, like, you've got so much time to accomplish so much. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like, there was a long period, like, going back to the music thing, like, I was hitting it really hard, like, for a while. And then I kind of found like my groove where I'm like, I would put out like original electronic music, but like nobody cared. Like, nobody would listen to it. And like, that shouldn't be the reason you put something out anyway. You should do it, as your art, like something that you feel passionate about. Like, to me, it's like the motivation shouldn't be just to get people to listen to it. But of course, there's a part of you that does.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I realized, like, nobody really cares when I post like original music. But my audience is mostly pro wrestling fans. So I'm like, all right, maybe I should remix some pro wrestling themes. Once I did that, now people suddenly started listening. So I'm like, okay, this is my niche. And then my MacBook like crashed in 2020, and I like didn't do anything with music for like 3 years, probably. I did like little stuff here and there, but I really didn't have a functioning laptop to like work from. But I finally got a new MacBook few months ago, and now I'm just like pumping out music like it's 2015 all over again.
I see you have a couple clips on your Instagram with new music. You're putting it out as DJZ, or are you putting it out as Wild West? Because I saw both names on the Instagram.
Yeah, so I'm gonna use Wild West, I think. DJZ, like, I just kind of want to get away from it now, because it's like there's too much confusion. It's like,
well, yeah, because that was also a gimmick back in another company, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. and I kind of also associate DJZ with like kind of like my like project of remixing wrestling themes a little bit. So it's like now that I'm like focusing more on like original electronic music, it's like I kind of want to just like get away from that and like start fresh. Like new MacBook, like I got a whole new like setup now. I just feel like totally like I hit a reset, and I think a new name just felt right, and something that wasn't too far of a stretch from Joaquin Wilde. That's a WWE like name, obviously, so I couldn't use that as like my. I didn't even want to say DJ name, just as my music like
Yeah, your moniker.
Name. Yeah, alias, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought something that like still is like not too much of a stretch, but feels original. So I went Wild West. There's like an aesthetic there. Like I don't know, when I feel like I hear a lot of people say like, oh yeah, it was the Wild West back in those days. If you've heard that, it's like they speak to a more reckless time in society. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That speaks to me, dude. I much like you, like I grew up like Attitude Era, early mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, where stuff did feel a little more lawless back then compared to now anyway. And it's like I just kind of want to bring back some of that energy.
For sure. I mean, we are definitely in different times. Like that's most of my Instagram feed is looking through like old videos from that era, and I'm just like, what? We did what back then?
Yeah.
Like back then it seemed normal, but now looking back at where we are as a society, you're like, oh my goodness, what were we thinking? And like, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's like that's a good energy to have as a performer, like that wild kind of, that's one of the interesting things about pro wrestling to me. Is just that weird, like I feel safe, but something could go terribly wrong here. This is pretty dangerous. People are swinging at each other and flying around, like something crazy might be happening,
Yeah. What's funny too is like I've started to get a little bit of attention this year in the wrestling world, just because of like just some wild stunts that I've done, just some very like daredevil type of energy that I brought to some of my matches, particularly in NXT. And a friend of mine tweeted about me, and he said that like what he said like actually meant a lot to me, because it kind of like made me feel like, oh dude, like my whole like Wild West kind of outlook, it's connecting with somebody, like it's working in some aspect. We need to keep going in this direction. But my friend said, he's like, I love watching DJZ matches because he still gives me the feeling of shock and awe. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm trying to go for, whether it's like wrestling or even eventually, hopefully someday with music too. But it's like, yeah, it's like shock and awe, that kind of just lawless, reckless, like anything could happen. It's like, it's a Joaquin Wilde match. Anything could happen, like I miss that energy. I think wrestling sometimes just feels like almost like formulaic, like by the numbers at times, and it's like that's not me.
yeah. And I mean, I think that also speaks to there's recently been like a rise in attention for death matches and stuff like that. Like it's coming back. Like back in the ECW days, it was a big deal, but that kind of went away. But lately, I've been seeing a lot of other companies and other places doing death match stuff, and I'm like, it's not my cup of tea. Like I don't want to see that every day, but it is wild and interesting to see.
It's wild to see it in person. Have you been to one of those shows in person?
Oh yeah. I've been to one of the crazy ones with like light tubes and all of that. So it is a wild feeling. But dude, you're kind of you're in a position, in a great position right now, because eventually pro wrestling is going to become a thing that you can't physically do. And a lot of the issue with a lot of pro wrestlers is they don't have another plan. They went all in on wrestling and they have nothing else. So you're in a position now where you're starting to build this music career that could be where you go after. And you're going to have the experience of being a performer in front of a live audience. So you could put on crazy shows that other people don't typically do. Maybe DJs just kind of stand there like, but like you're a performer. You could do something wild. And there's also the timing. That's something very important that a lot of musicians don't, that I get music sent to me all the time for the podcast. Like, check out my band. A lot of times my biggest issue with a band is that they're not in sync. They're not in time. They don't have the timing down, especially for electronic music. Like you gotta be tight. It's got to
Oh
be
yeah,
on the
sure.
beat. It's got to be on the beat. You got to have that moment, that crescendo, and then the explosion. Like everything has to be timed perfectly. But
Yep.
you have that because you that's one of the most important things in the ring as well, timing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Quote that I love too. Learn the rules like a professional, so you can break them like an artist.
Ah, I like that one. I haven't heard that
Yeah.
one. That's
Like
a good one.
that spoke to me like on the music journey anyway, because it's like it was important for me to have this like solid foundation, especially because I don't come from like a musical background. Like
Yeah.
I didn't grow up playing piano or drums or guitar or anything like that. I don't know music theory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but if I had a foundation, an electronic music foundation, which I got from Dubspot and just a lot of trial and error and practice, uh, it's like that eventually we can like kind of like step out of those basic foundational elements and like start playing around and trying different things and seeing what we come up with. And dude, I have so much fun. Like it doesn't feel like work to me. And like when I make a beat, it's a pure like creative endeavor. And I love that like it's not tied to wrestling either. And it's like, because I feel like wrestling, like so much of my interests and so much of the things in my life are because of wrestling. I met my wife because of wrestling. I have a passion for like working out, but that's because of wrestling. You know what I'm saying? It's like all these
Yeah.
things, they're all tied to wrestling, but like music and making beats is like my one like kind of thing that's like separate from that. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
yeah, that's important to me because I think it's important to not be one dimensional. You can drive yourself crazy sometimes being too focused on like one particular interest or passion. So I think for the balance, I'm a Libra, so I think for the balance of everything,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
music's been a very healthy, good thing for me.
Absolutely. And it's good that you have it separate from wrestling because I feel that I'm a fan of music regardless, and I love themes, pro wrestling themes, and I think that some of them are really great. Like I'll listen to them in my car, even just because I want to hear the song, not because I'm like trying to visualize an entrance. It's just a good song, but I feel that the music industry doesn't really respect that music as like actual music. Same with like video game music. I love some really great video game soundtracks, and I get I have musician friends who are like, that's not music. I'm like, are you crazy? There's like violins and like orchestration. Like, what do you mean that's not music? So so yeah, I mean, it's a good thing, I guess, for your career that it's not tied to wrestling, because then it gets looked down on, like, oh, it's just wrestling related or something.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's always the element too of like looking at me as like, oh, he's a pro wrestler trying to do stuff in music. Like I definitely experienced that a little bit, where it's like I'm not taken seriously as like a musician or like a electronic music producer because people know me from wrestling,
Right.
But it's like I really did pay the dues. Like I still continue to learn. You're never gonna fully like master like making beats or music, but like I mean I've put in work for years and years and years, like trying to genuinely have some level of talent with it. And it's like it's crazy to me, like when I started at when I started DJing in Washington DC, I remember like this is how little I knew about music. I remember DJ ID telling me about like a kick and a snare. I didn't even know what that was. That's how little I knew about music. In 2012, when I started this journey, I did not know what a kick or a snare was. That was 2012. 2014, I was DJing live on Shade 45 Sway in the Morning with Young Jeezy and the actor Ethan Hawke in the studio. But I thought Ethan Hawke was Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray. To be honest.
You're like, do your song, dude. Do the song. No, I'm just kidding.
I saw him sitting there, and I was just like, he's talking about his movie. He's like plugging his movie, and I'm like, oh, that's what Mark McGrath's been up to. He's an actor now. Oh, I didn't know that. Idiot.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh man, but I was going to ask you, like, have you, how many shows have you performed, and also, what is the goal? Do you think, if there is a goal, but just the thought of, do you want to be a live performance type of musician, or would you be more inclined to just be behind the scenes creating beats and then bringing in like a rapper or something, like just being on the production side?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like when I started the journey, for sure, I was like, yeah, I want to be like DJing like big raves and like EDM shows and doing that type of thing. And I've done a lot. Like I did that Shade 45 thing, like I mentioned. Uh, I moved to Chicago in 2014, and like it was primarily for DJing because that's like kind of like a big city for like house music and like electronic music in general.
Really?
So I moved to Chicago to try to like kind of go after it a little bit. And I DJ'd some of the big parties in Chicago. This is another crazy one. I DJ'd the Bullet Club's block party back in 2019 before WrestleMania. And that was crazy because I DJ'd for like 6 straight hours, which it's probably the longest like set that I've ever done. It's the whole day. And I eventually like, it was weird because like at first I was like just background music where people were like enjoying their time and I was just kind of playing music in the background. Nobody's like watching me like a live performer. But as like the day went on, I started getting like really into it. And there definitely was some sort of energy coming from my set because now that a crowd started like forming. And then like by late afternoon, like I had a big crowd like watching me and this other DJ Neurotic, just going back to back like DJing. And we did the same thing at All In, the very first like All In show. They booked me to DJ that. I was the official DJ for All In, and yeah, I had a big crowd. That was it. That was interesting, and like knowing your audience because I started out playing like some wrestling themes and like played some hip hop, some electronic stuff, and like nobody really like cared. That was just kind of background music. But then I played Fall Out Boy or like Panic at the Disco or something like that. And there was like a response to it. And I'm like, oh, let's just play more pop punk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I just kept playing like mid 2000s pop punk. Like whatever was hot on MySpace in 06, 07, I was dropping all of that. And I got a big crowd. It was great.
Yeah, you got to know your audience, man. I mean, I've been there. I've been there to try something. It doesn't really work. You just got to pivot. And, you know, that again, I would thank the experience you have in the ring with that because there's a lot of that too where you got to like make adjustments or improv like, oh shit, the crowd's not really feeling this. Let me try this, you know, try to get them back up on their feet.
Yeah, that's definitely the pro wrestler in me, like having that kind of awareness and like just not being married to your ideas and your vision. Like I kind of learned that early on too because like I was going to all these like EDM shows. And I remember I got booked for like a DJ gig in Washington, D.C. at this nightclub called Fur. And I fully intended to like go and just play like the EDM bangers that I wanted to play. And I was talking to another DJ like the night before and I was like telling him about it. And he was like, you can't do that. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, wait, what do you mean I can't do that? He's like, that audience might not be the right crowd for that. Like maybe they will be, but you can't just like be stuck on that idea that like you're just going to go there and play your set regardless of whether like it's keeping people on the dance floor or not. And I remember that just kind of blew my mind where I'm like, oh my God, you're so right about that. Like, how do I know what that audience wants to hear? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to know till I get there. And then thankfully, like that piece of advice, like did help me because like, yeah, they were not trying to hear like all this like hard dubstep or whatever I was trying to play. It's like, no, they wanted to hear like whatever's popular in today's pop music. And like, thankfully, like I had that little piece of advice the night before to kind of help me get through that. But yeah, it's like that idea is like definitely applies to wrestling and can apply to music, can apply to any entertainment thing for sure. You know what I'm saying?
That is an interesting thing too, because like you said, knowing the crowd, knowing the feeling of what they're feeling, like it happens to me with like I think it's when you're a fan of music, you end up deep diving into some deep cuts that people aren't really familiar with. You know, if you're really passionate about music, there's all the stuff that's on the radio, but you have like the stuff you listen to at home that's not on the radio. Yeah. And then you want to show that to people, but I mean, that's a lot of times people don't want to hear that. Like I'll be at a party, and my friends are like, "Hey man, put something on." I'll put on like Cannibal Corpse, and they're like, "No, wrong vibe."
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, Nickelback it is. You know what I mean? Whatever you need.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So tell me, you say Philippines culturally music? I mean, like in my household, there was music. It was salsa, merengue, like Latino music in the house. Was there any kind of like historic or heritage music in the house that maybe that you could infuse into the wild thing?
Not really. What's so funny is like growing up Filipino, like we go to these like Filipino parties, right? And like any Filipino person that's listening to this is gonna totally relate to this. It's gonna take them back. Like there would just be these like gatherings of Filipino people. Like they would just come from like every surrounding like kind of like city, and then they'd all congregate in this one person's house. There'd be all the greatest hits of the best Filipino food, and then all the kids would be playing together while all the parents are like speaking Tagalog and like networking, getting to know each other, whatever. But there would always be karaoke at these parties. Karaoke is a very serious thing in Filipino culture. Like, dude, bar fights get started over people like not singing like Frank Sinatra songs like the right way. It's a very serious thing. And I remember like it kind of being instilled in me like from a young age, like, no, you have to do this karaoke. You have to become a good singer, so then you can like go to the Philippines and like become like a pop superstar or something like that. And I was never really interested in that so much. So I can't really say that like Philippines like influenced me like musically or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I feel like, I don't know.
Do you think you're gonna sing?
I'm kind of going blank for a second how I want to explain it.
Do you think you want to sing in some of your songs?
I wish I could rap some of my songs. Like that's what I wish I could do.
Have you tried doing like a freestyle? Like I'm not gonna make you do it now, but like have you ever tried?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like of course we've tried. But maybe I just have too much respect for the craft now that I'm like I can't do that to myself, like especially just knowing that like I didn't like really like put in the work for it. It's like maybe if I like really like devoted the energy to it, yeah, maybe in like 10-15 years I could like do something that I'd feel comfortable sharing with the world. But I think I'm better suited like making the beats. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really where I shine now at this point, and I'm okay with that. Like I like working with some rappers and stuff like that, and then just kind of collaborating in that way. It's like it's my way of feeling like I'm involved with the rap scene without actually having to rap.
Yeah, man, that's one I've never been able to do. I used to sing in a band for about 10 years, so I the performing and singing is not an issue, but the string of words that people do with freestyle. Like I've seen some rappers just and I know that there's work that goes into it and training and practice. Sure. But I've also seen rappers where from my observation, it feels like they're just channeling something. Like something is going through them and they're just kind of like their eyes are blank and they're just spitting out words that I don't like. Your brain is not possibly processing all of that information. It's just coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. So some people are just naturals. Like even with pro wrestling, like I'm very much like someone that like likes to practice things to get them a certain way. But there's some people that don't need to do that. Like there's some people that are just naturally gifted in that way. So I'm super jealous of those types.
Let's say hypothetical, if you could play an instrument, which one would it be? And would you like what other genre of music would you like to explore if you had the skill?
So piano is definitely the answer. I just think like you can play piano, you can pretty much do anything. I feel like that's like in some ways like a nucleus of music, because like it's like I can play like guitar parts on a piano. I can play bass. I can play any kind of melody. Like you can play anything on a piano pretty much. Yeah. So I just think that's super important. I wish I could like play it. My daughter, I've already said like, hey, if she's not interested in it, no big deal. But I am going to introduce piano to her at some point and get her to at least attempt it. Super important. As far as other genres go, like, I mean, dude, like you said, we're roughly the same age. It's like, I feel like our generation, like we all kind of grew up listening to everything a little bit. That being said, I went through like a pretty like serious, like goth phase, like when I was a teenager and into my early 20s. And it's like, while I don't like have that outward appearance anymore, I'm still interested in like that culture and like that music. So like probably something industrial. Like I really like industrial music. So like, I think I would like to dabble in that at some point. Like, I don't know how exactly. Maybe it's just sampling like old industrial stuff that I used to like, making that into like some new electronic sound. I don't know, but yeah, maybe we'll sample some like him or Typo Negative one day and see what happens.
Yeah, I went through a similar phase as well. I mean, I went to a goth club in Miami once for the first time. Just my friends were like, they were going with the intention of making fun of the people there. That was their intention. They're like, oh, it's going to be people watching. It'll be interesting. Let's go. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I fell in love. I'm like, oh my God, it's dark in here. There's one strobe light. They're playing this crazy music I've never heard before. And I just went down the rabbit hole, like, and became a big fan of, like VMV Nation and Covenant.
Oh yeah. I love VMV Nation.
Yeah. I love love those types. I mean, and for you, that might be a good path. 'Cause the singers in those bands don't typically go too far out in ranges. It's very low, like, low, like you don't really have to know how to sing to do something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who knows? Like, we'll see what happens. Yeah. I remember like I wanted to start like a industrial band so bad when I was like 19 years old. That was like when I was like taking guitar lessons. Like that was like my first like idea with music was I was like, no, dude, like I'm going to start like a goth kind of band. I remember one point, me and Sammy Callahan, he probably doesn't even remember this, but I remember at one point, me and Sammy Callahan were like going to do this together. And like, we were like both going to like be a part of this like goth band that we had this idea for, but never came to fruition, probably for the best, but
yeah. Hey.
But yeah.
Well, hey, maybe now you can join the Judgment Day. No, I'm just... No, I find that fun. I found that fun. Like I've connected to that group because of that gothy background of like, and I've seen kind of a resurgence of that actually in the music scene. Like there's like bands coming back that are from that era, like new metal, gothy. All of that seems to be coming back. It's interesting.
Yeah, dude, I'm here for it.
Oh yeah.
I think too, like, I still wonder, like, back when I did DJZ and TNA, it's like there was something there. I remember like a few months ago, like Carlito like asked me, he's like, how come you don't do DJZ anymore? He's like, that worked. And I was like, yeah, it did. And I've since like pondered, I wonder if there's like some opportunity somewhere down the line to have like an evolved version of DJZ in WWE one day. Like, oh wow, what would that look like? Would that be possible? Who knows? Like, it's something that's starting to like float around in my head, and I just wonder if there's possibilities or not.
I think so. I think you're kind of laying the foundations now. Like you said, you're kind of picking up some buzz with some of these crazy stunts that you're doing. I see them online. I'm like, what the, what are you but your people are popping, and it's a singles run wouldn't be out of the question for you, and maybe when that time comes, that singles run can be that evolved version of whatever you're working on,
Yeah, who knows? Dude, I even thought of an idea too. I'm like, it would be cool to do like my wrestling theme remixes, but like with like the WWE like behind it. I was like, oh, imagine if I could drop like an EP where I just remix like a bunch of like classic WWE entrance themes, and then they put that out and promoted it. I'm like, wow, that could be like a really cool idea and something I would love to do. So who knows? Then maybe we could even get like some rappers on it, because there's a lot of rappers that love professional wrestling, love WWE. So I'm like, man, like there could be a real opportunity there. It's kind of seeing if it's possible, bringing that to somebody's attention. Triple H, I don't know.
Just make a good mix and just bring it to him. Like, here you go.
Like, that's not a bad idea. I actually remixed Triple H's entrance music, and I don't think he knows about it. Like, it's actually one of the better ones that I've done too. And for some reason, I've never like showed it to him, and I don't think he's aware of it. So I should probably get on that and be like, hey, I did this. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I know he's a big fan of music. I know that.
Yeah.
He was friends with Lemmy, and I give tons of respect for putting on acts that maybe were a little less, like Code Orange. When Code Orange played in NXT, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's wild. I wouldn't expect that. But yeah, he's a fan of music. I would definitely when you mentioned that, like doing a WWE backed remix album, that would be really dope, I think.
Yeah, I would love to do it. So hopefully we're like manifesting it, putting it in the universe, and maybe one day it'll happen.
There you go. Well, dude, Let's wrap it up. I want to thank you so much. It really is, a pleasure having you on the show. I'm looking forward to more music from you. Let people know what's the best place to get what you have out there on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I will make a Wild West Spotify. I don't really feel like I have urgency on it because one, not a lot of people are trying to listen to my music at the moment. I'm not trying to make it as a legitimate musician. It's really a fun passion project, but it's at the same time I take it seriously, and I am curious to see if anything does come from it. We'll see. But yeah, there will be a Wild West Spotify. I have not a Spotify. I have a SoundCloud for now that I just kind of upload my music to. It's pretty low key. Nobody knows about it too much, but it's soundcloud.com/IMDJZ. Yes, nice. We should probably make a Wild West one eventually, just to have everything consistent. But sure, yeah. We're not there yet. So yeah, soundcloud.com/IMDJZ. Ton of wrestling themes that I've remixed on there, and then all my original electronic music as well. So check it out if you're curious about what I do.
Yeah, man. And talk to your stablemate, Bad Bunny. That's how you get into music biz. Just do a collab with him and get it done.
I would love to. So we'll see what the future holds.
All right, brother. And anybody that wants to follow at Joaquin Wilde on Instagram, is that it? Is there an underscore or anything like that?
Yeah, there's an underscore on the end. Yeah, okay. At Joaquin Wilde _.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, hopefully next time you're in LA, we can hang out. Last time, that's how we met. We met at the Comedy Store a year or two ago. I forget how long it's been. It was actually last year, Mania season.
Yep.
But yeah, hopefully you come back out here anytime you want to go to the store. Just hit me up. We can walk you right in. No problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, I need to tell you before I go.
Yeah.
Doing a 5-minute open mic is also on my bucket list of things that I want to do before it's all said and done. So we'll talk one day.
Talk to me. I'm booking comedy shows, so I just I just had the Nemeth brothers on one of my shows, so it could be done.
All right, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
Get to writing.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you so much. Later.